A question for you. How wealthy is Britain relative to other industrial nations? This is a question that was posed recently by the IEA of 3,000 Britons, and the answer that came back is that we think that we are as wealthy, if not wealthier, than other industrial nations. Unfortunately, this is not true. The reality is way, way worse than that. In fact, we don't even appear in the top 20. Countries like Australia, Singapore, Germany, Switzerland, USA are way wealthier than we are. Switzerland's more than twice as wealthy as we are on a GDP per capita basis, and the USA almost twice as much. In fact, in regard to USA, that same survey asked Britons to rank Britain relative to the individual states to say where we'd appear on a list. And Britain's placed as 7th. Not bad in the top 10. Reality is, we would be 51st. Britain is poorer than even the poorest state in the US. When the news of this survey landed on the desk of the governor of Mississippi, the poorest state in America and one that's often the butt of jokes by other states, he posted online, "Bless your hearts," which was a gentle dig at the sheer naivety of the British public. Now, why does this matter, other than being a slightly embarrassing pub fact? Well, if you believe you're wealthier than you actually are, then you demand things that you can't afford. You look at policies which are more to do with sharing the wealth around rather than trying to grow the size of the pot. And your politics gets stuck. And you end up having to mortgage the future of your children and grandchildren in order to pay for things that you can't afford today. And that lack of understanding, that disconnect between reality and perception doesn't just stop at how wealthy the nation is. In a poll by Ipsos recently, Britons were asked how much wealth was held by the top 1%. And the collective view of the Brits was that the wealth held by the 1% of the country was 59%, which is a hell of a lot and goes a long way to explain why people think there's so much wealth inequality in this country. The actual number, 23%. It's a hell of a difference between that and 59. And while that's still a big sum for 1% to hold, that 1% also pays for almost 30% of all taxes. So you start to see these numbers look a lot less difficult and actually are in some sort of balance, even if you prefer them they weren't quite so big. So why do these matter? Why is it so important? And why is it happening? Well, there is a narrative that's filled the gap between reality and perception. And that narrative is that everything that's wrong with this country is the fault of greedy corporations and billionaires, individuals, the elite hoarding the wealth. If only we could just take that wealth away from them and redistribute it, everything will be fine. Rather than deal with the reality is that as a nation, we're not wealthy anymore and we need to make more effort growing the size of the pot. But if the reality and the perception gap is so large, how has it been allowed to persist? Well, firstly, there are lots and lots of people in both new media and old media who are, let's say, progressive, who believe that the rich should be taxed more regardless of any other factors, and therefore they're quite willing to support the stories even if they're extreme. You've got the old media who are frightened of being told off for bias, so they don't challenge enough. And the populists on both sides, but particularly on the left, have worked out that you can get a lot of votes by blaming a very, very small number of people who have no power at the ballot box and letting everyone else know, don't worry, there's no pain to be incurred, it's all that lot's fault, vote for us and we'll fix it, even though that is a fairy tale. One quick thing, Harley here, say hello Harley, has a quick request. Would you mind hitting the like button and maybe subscribing? Most people who watch these videos don't, and it really, really helps. Okay, that's it. Back to the video. You only had to look at the rise of the Green Party recently, a party that was founded on environmental issues, water quality, air quality, global warming, biodiversity, etc. But now it looks more like a Marxist-light party with a bit of recycling on the side, with its focused on economic justice rather than environmental issues, because they figured out that that's where the votes are. Because this story is not being pushed back against and people believing things that basically are not true. And then we get a whole host of what I call luxury beliefs. Beliefs, desires, if you like, things that you demand that only a rich country can afford, but because we're not that rich, we can't really afford them, but nobody's willing to say, no, well, I'm sorry, you can't have that because there isn't the money, because they just say, yes, there is, it's those buggers over there, I've got it, just get it off them. And because we have this dishonest debate, people don't appreciate exactly how much wealth we have and who has it, that we keep getting into political trouble. So how do we actually improve things? Well, number one, let's start telling each other the truth. Number two, let's check our facts. Make sure that the things that we believe actually have some foundation to them. Number three, demand that our politicians speak the truth. And number four, demand to see the numbers. Maths matters. And in our public discourse, everyone talks about principles and philosophies and ideologies, but nobody will show you the workings out. If you can't afford it, where's the money coming from? And sadly, that's missing from pretty much all policy debate. So if you want to make sure that we have an affordable future, one where the conversations are honest about where we really are, what we can really afford, demand truth, demand honesty, and make sure someone shows you the maths. Let me know what you think. Bye-bye.